Breaking ground on the workshop brings us one step closer to our family's dream, which is to have a self-sustaining homestead. We're not just building a home here, we're building a homestead, and for us that means a space to work, to generate things that we need and things that we can trade for things that we need. So this really is an economic center as well as a family center, and we as a family are able to produce for ourselves. So that workspace is almost more important than the living space.
The cool thing about this building is it's going to incorporate a whole bunch of different materials that I like to work with. So it's going to be steel posts and timber frame trusses. So it's kind of the best of both worlds for me. I like to play with both of those. We had to harvest some logs in order to have enough lumber to do the timber frame trusses, and the whole roof structure is wood. As well as, you know, some of the offcuts from that will become wall framing later on. So the first thing we had to do after the pad was all leveled was stuff a bunch of logs all the way in the back, right next to the mill. So after the logs were back there, we were able to lay out our shape. So I put up the batter boards and ran string lines and did all of my geometry to make sure that I was laying out a square rectangle. The whole building is going to be 16 feet wide by 40 feet long, so it's a good amount of space. Okay, come step over here now. It's template time. I'm going to make a piece of plywood. Instead of measuring out the same rectangle 12 times, I'm going to make a template. The foundation for the shop, it's not a continuous stem wall. We're not even pouring a slab just yet. We're building it essentially as a pole barn, except that we are doing large footers and piers for each of the 12 posts. That's how big the footer is. These are steel posts. I guess I'm not changing the foundation in any way from wood posts to steel posts. Even at the bottom of wood posts, I'll tend to put a steel standoff for separation from the concrete and then weld that in place. Well, in this case, we're doing exactly the same thing. It's a 9-foot tall steel post, and it's just going to weld to the top of those piers. What do you think? Big enough?
Yeah, it's good. I'm glad it's a big building because you take up a lot of space.
I do.
In a good way.
Yeah.
Besides, it's very hidden.
The building?
Yeah.
You like that it's tucked?
I do. I think that shop mess should be tucked. I think that's the right thing to do with it.
So we had our friend with the backhoe from up the hill come down, and he spent maybe an hour digging all 12 of these holes with his backhoe. And then we have to get in the hole and square it up, flatten the bottom, make sure it's deep enough, make sure the footprint is in the right place. And so that actually does translate into more shovel time than backhoe time. We're pouring each pier in 2 parts. We're pouring the footer, and then we're pouring the pier. So that is how it made sense to me in order to form it up properly in a way that I knew how, but also since we are mixing our own concrete, 2 bags at a time in a little electric mixer. We just didn't want to have too much to do at any given time. So it made sense to do it in small batches, little tiny steps that we could just, keep working on, keep chipping away at, rather than forming up the whole project as if we're having a truck come in, because we're not. So each footer got about 14 bags of concrete. That turns out to be 7 batches in the mixer. It took, maybe an hour and change for each footer. I had Stella helping at one point. It's good to have a voice-activated water hose sometimes where I can just say, turn it on, turn it off, and she'll do it. But really for this first half, I was on my own, and it was fine. It worked out okay.
The first side of the shop foundation really was a long slog for Nick. It took almost an entire month from the layout to the backfill at the end.
Rain and dirt work don't go well together. We're learning here. It's just part of working outside, I guess. But it led up, and we're making a little bit of progress today. We should have some piers poured by the end of tomorrow. So that's progress.
It was a rainy day, 3 weeks after setting the batter boards, that Nick was able to start forming the piers.
What is that?
Yuck.
What is that?
So with the footers all poured, and we gave them a few days to set up, I started doing the form work for the piers, and it's really just a 12 by 12 plywood box. And I stood those up right in the form work that I used for holding the rebar in place.
Very nice.
Thank you very much. Embedded in these footers is a grid work of number 4 rebar, 1/2 inch size. The piers also have rebar going in them. They have 4 verticals and I think 3 ties that tie them all together. So it does kind of seem like a lot of hard work, and what is it all for? And it is hard work, but it's also only about 100 feet from my front door. And the whole idea of having everything here that we need is well worth it. I don't have to go and report to much anybody, and I'm just accountable to my family.
It's very nice.
So once these piers are all done, 6 down this side, we're going to pause and not do the 6 on that side for a moment, because we're going to go up and pour the foundation for our mudroom, which is a project that you guys have probably heard about for a long time now, and we've been thinking about it for a long time. But it's just one of those things that if you don't get to it, it doesn't get done. So it's still not done. But we'll pour the foundation. We'll get that all closed up before winter. And that's where the little red cement mixer is going next. I'm Nick. Thanks for watching.